I'm Diana LaRocco, and I direct the Goodwin University Institute for Learning and Innovation. And this webinar is sponsored by that institute, the Institute for Learning and Innovation, and the Center for Teaching Excellence. We're really thrilled to once again be able to record and load up to YouTube a wonderful presentation that will be given by our colleague Kristen Monroe. And we're here today, as many of you know, in East Hartford, Connecticut, in the US. And in 2026, it will be 10 years since Goodwin adopted Universal Design for Learning as its pedagogy for the whole university. So we have a big year coming up. And with that in mind, I'm just going to share, hopefully, a little bit about what's going to happen in 2026. We are looking for proposals for season 3 of our free UDL 3.0 webinar series. On the screen, you'll see a QR code in black and white and a bit.ly link that is posted to the chat, and we'll continue to post that link. And we're looking for presentations, and hopefully we'll get tons of them. So the call for proposals is out. It's due December 1st. You can submit them to, oh my, look at this, udl@goodwin.edu. And if you have questions, feel free to email udl@goodwin.edu. What will also appear in the chat periodically are some links to the recordings for the 2025 playlist and then the 2025-26 playlist, or which is really 2025, and our UDL blog and other pieces of information about the Universal Design for Learning work that we do at Goodwin University. Really excited and thankful to have Kristen Monroe with us today, who is at Landmark University, and that's in Putney, Vermont, in the US. And that's a fabulous school. I know a couple people that work there. And Kristen just shared she's going to be going on to the University of Illinois, Urbana, right, in a few weeks. So we're excited for her. The topic today is embracing intersectionality in STEM education through Universal Design for Learning. And Kristen's going to talk about welcoming interests and identities. That is UDL Guideline 7 for those that like the numbers, as I do. The thing that will happen is she has some great activities and will engage us to look at the who of learning and how creating more inclusive STEM classrooms by authentically integrating the various different identities that we all bring to learning and perspectives in STEM education really will support students. Kristen is an assistant professor of chemistry at Landmark College, as I mentioned earlier, in Putney, Vermont. And one of her areas of expertise is UDL and supporting neurodivergent students. Additionally, she's a big fan of mentoring undergraduate students. So, Kristen, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and allow you to share yours and to take it away. So hang on, give me a minute as I stop sharing, and it is all you. So go ahead and share, and we're thankful to have you here. Welcome again, and welcome to our friends in the audience. Please feel free to share where you're from. We always like to know who's in the audience, and we know it's a busy time of year as we're coming closer to the end of semester for many of us. So go ahead, Kristen.
Thank you. I'm just making sure that I'm going to share in the right mode. There we go. Can you, oh,
Almost there.
okay. Thank you
There
so
you
much.
go. We're
I'm
good.
excited. I'm really excited to share what I've been working on at Landmark. Oh, have a loading. It worked before and now it seems to. Okay. Did that advance?
It advanced, but there you go. Now you've got it. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. As Diana mentioned, Landmark is in southern Vermont, in the United States. And this is kind of New England to give you a sense of where it is. About 15 minutes from the Massachusetts border and 5 minutes from the New Hampshire border. And Hartford is my go-to airport. So that kind of gives us a sense of how close we are to Hartford, Connecticut. So Landmark was the first institution of higher education to exclusively serve neurodivergent students and was established in 1985. For those of you that are familiar with the term neurodivergent, and the history, it predates Landmark predates the term neurodivergent, but that's kind of how we describe the students that we work with, and specifically the students with learning differences such as dyslexia, ADHD, and also we tend to have a high autism population as well. I always like to start my talks off with a disclaimer. I think it's important to know that anything that we talk about is really not a wholesale fix-all. And so consider how you can adapt it to yourself, to your content, and to your students. I think that sometimes accessibility conversations can be a little bit intimidating and you think, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. So I'd like to kind of describe this in a way to think about how you can make it authentic in your own classroom. I'll first start off with a little bit of exploring intersectionality and belonging in STEM, really focusing on that engagement principle and identity principles of UDL, examine strategies for collaboration and self-regulation, and applying UDL to some STEM courses and assessment design. So I was recently reading the newest book from CAST with UDL 3.0, which does have a strong focus on the who of learning. And there's a quote in there from Lisa Dilfit that says, "The teacher cannot be the only expert in the classroom." And teaching at Landmark for 5 years, I have learned that in spades because I have learned so much from the students that I teach and have really embraced the idea of co-designing curriculum with them. And I have a few examples. One of the of products that we have published, including drug discovery through an ethnobotany, which I'm going to talk about pretty extensively in this talk, and then another one where HIV Uncovered, which is where students took Howard Hughes Medical Institute resources and actually created their own discussion questions, which was a really cool exercise. But emphasizing that the students have this strong expertise about their own learning and how you can tap into that is really important for me. So I want to start off with a waterfall. So if you're not familiar with waterfalls, essentially how they work is you type an answer to the question, but you don't hit enter until I say go. This just kind of allows everyone to have the chance to get that into the chat so that you know, we don't we kind of balance that out. So in one word or two, you know, it doesn't we're all friends here, so it doesn't have to be one, but what does inclusion mean to you? So folks can type that in the chat, and I'll give about 30 seconds to give you a chance to type, and then once I say enter, then you can go then you can hit enter in the chat. All right, go ahead and hit enter. All right, so and yeah, it is a small group, so if you want to unmute as well and describe why you said these things, I really love all of the different things I'm seeing: respect, empathy, equality, belonging, valued. It's pretty awesome. Thank you. So this is you know, a big thing that is so important to embrace when you are teaching, especially difficult subjects like chemistry. And bringing everyone is invited to dance and dancing in an authentic way, going off of what Diana said in the chat. Uh, Doing the dance in a way that makes sense to you and what you enjoy. And so I wanted to just take a moment to address why intersectionality matters in STEM. You know, as we are with educators, we are not only building a sense of identity in the field that we're teaching, but we're also, along with that comes past and present identities. And identity shapes perception and engagement. So I think it's also important to acknowledge that neurodiversity is a cultural movement, and thinking about it as a cultural movement and how it aligns with other cultural movements is also something that can build that sense of belonging. When we talk about neurodiversity, I think it's important to I typically will uh, rely on the social model of disability as opposed to the medical model. Not, you know, all of our students are neurodivergent, but we don't require formal diagnoses to attend Landmark. And so the social model really focuses on this idea that you have I have a bell curve on the screen. You have this central box that is the neurotypical person. And on the edges of the bell curve, both above and below average, are the neurodivergent individuals. I think it's important to highlight both sides of that. And so the way that we approach this at Landmark is really thinking about the idea that we have a that the world was designed for the neurotypical person. And if we can think about ways of expanding that box or shifting the box to include neurodivergent individuals, we're creating more inclusive environments. Language is personal. So as I mentioned, we'd like to think about neurodivergence as a cultural movement. I tend to switch back and forth between person first and disability first language. And a lot of times it's because I'm thinking about individual students as I'm speaking. Many of the students that I work with, for them, their disability identity is a huge part of who they are. And so they do prefer to use disability first language. But there are also students that will use person's first language. And so it's really up to them to decide what language they prefer to use. And, you know, and so it's really up to that person as an individual. Um, So I know we're a small group. And there is a worksheet in the chat that, you know, if you want to take notes, is kind of broken up into things. But I want to ask the question of what helps students feel safe taking risks in your class. I'm just trying to look at my time here. So I'll give like 2 or 3, we'll say 3 minutes. So 20 past the hour to come back. But this is really a one-on-one reflection and and so at 2:20 I'll call everyone back, and then if folks are willing to share what they wrote down, that would be great. All right, give it another minute or so. All right, so does anyone feel comfortable sharing either in the chat or by unmuting what they wrote down or what they reflected on? All right, so just reading a few things in the chat. Robert says modeling vulnerability and disclosure as an instructor by sharing personal learning strategies and friction points. I love that. I think that, that showing the students that you are a person and that you have may have similar struggles is such a great way of doing things. I failed my first chemistry class in high school, and so I always share that with my students. Setting clear expectations and knowing and showing them what success looks like. That's awesome. Developing relationships grounded in trust. And having students feel comfortable with us as faculty. All great responses. Thank you. Um, so, next, I'm gonna talk a little bit about um, the idea of expanding the framework with the UDL 3.0 guidelines. Uh, a couple years ago, I started working with a group called Biography, and it, it is a group that helps develop curriculum. And there are two components to the curriculum. One is interviewing a scientist from a counter stereotypical background, and the other part is graphical literacy. So, you can see the biography, bio, and graphs. And they really emphasized, they got, it was right before the 3.0 guidelines were published, but they were really emphasizing the uh, sneak peek that they had with UDL 3.0. And um, and that identity development. And so that is what has shaped a couple of the projects that I have worked on. So one of the things that is focused on is motivation grows when learning is meaningful and personal. So helping students to understand why they're learning and why it relates to them, connecting it to their not just real world relevance, but their real world relevance. Providing authentic representation, having a variety of voices, and also building collaboration and ownership. I think that the best assignments that I've had are assignments that are intentionally left a little bit open-ended to give students the opportunity to kind of fill in how they interpret it. And of course, you do have to work with them a little bit more closely. There are going to be students that are going to struggle with that, but it's something that I think is really important to give the students that opportunity to engage with. Um, So this is a chat poll. So you can put 1, 2, 3, or any combination of the three. So which is the easiest and hardest to implement? So easiest, choose a number, hardest. And in terms of connecting things to real world relevance, providing authentic representation, or building collaboration and ownership. And folks can hit enter as they finish, just to give you a sense of, you know, um, how quickly people are thinking about it. All right, so right off the bat, hardest is number 3, building collaboration ownership. Um, I would definitely agree with that. I would say, it is time consuming, and it's hard depending upon how larger class sizes are. I currently have a class of 2 and a class of 8, and so it is easier for me to allow students to have that flexibility. And in some cases, I actually will hire interns to help with curriculum development, because they're sharing their expertise with me, and I am sharing my expertise with them. But it seems like the consensus is 1 is the easiest, connecting to the real world relevance, and 3 is the hardest. So that's very interesting. Thank you all for sharing. Um, so, the first example I'm going to give is fostering collaboration and community, inviting students to co-design materials, um, and having shared goals. And example I'm going to talk about is co-developing discussion questions. I have to admit that I am not very good at coming up with compelling discussion questions, and I genuinely believe that my students are much better and much more creative at doing these things. And so when I joined Howard Hughes Medical Institute HHMI faculty learning community, and the goal was to adapt some of their resources, I immediately thought this is a great project for my students to work on in the classroom. And so first I worked to identify, so I gave the students a general idea of what types of modules would be available to them. They wrote the discussion questions, and then they answered the questions. They presented it to the class, and then we compiled it as a whole and we published. This was a multi-week, it actually started during their midterm time, where they were starting to do the planning and identification of modules, and then it became their final project. And I think that there is a level of trust that you need to have with your students when doing this type of thing, because obviously, you might have students that write discussion questions that might be too hard, might be too easy. And so there's definitely some coaching that also needs to take place as we do this. And so we were lucky enough to be able to publish this as an HHMI educator resource. These are so they do get the document identifier number. They aren't necessarily peer reviewed, but they are something that is available and published on the internet, which is also another really nice thing to do for the students if they put the work in, because they start to build that belongingness. And I was actually able to do it a second time with another series of activities about sickle cell, where the students again looked at the resources and built their own discussion questions. This is building off of some activities that were relatively short. And so this allowed me to kind of expand this activity into a little bit longer of a period, and really develop the students' critical thinking skills as well.
Kristen,
Yes.
I have a question about if you go back.
Um,
Just yeah, yeah. So the did you have students and Vita? Vita Vernace is a colleague of mine, so I'm thinking of Vita, who spent endless hours developing discussion questions, and now that is on this video in perpetuity, Vita. When there was a redesign of our bio courses. And so my question, Kristen, is Did you have students read the material first so that they could grasp, a little bit about the content, so then they could create the discussion questions? How did you come at this?
So the modules were either hands-on activities or videos. And so I had the students engage with the hands-on activities and videos. And we also learned about the two different diseases, HIV and sickle cell, and discussed it ahead of time, some of the basic content. And then after that, the students were able to do those deeper dives. And I think that what is really rich about it, so, teaching at a very small undergrad, we have less than 500 students. I don't have a lot of time I don't have dedicated time to really do curriculum development and to do these deep dives. And so having the students do it, I think it's actually really cool because they find things that, would take me so long to find. But yeah, so does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So they did have information about the particular content first. So they learned about whatever the particular subject matter was, and then they developed the questions. Whether you said you use videos and so forth, whether it was a reading, a book chapter, whatever it was, you did that first, and then have them write up the questions.
Yes. And so the questions were specifically based off of whatever media they were provided. So it was a focused thing as opposed to sort of come up with discussions questions about HIV, because that's, not
Yeah,
useful for anyone,
right,
right?
right.
And
Thank you.
it also prevents redundancy as well. So we did and they were collaborating with each other to kind of say, how can we present this as a cohesive thing in the end as well?
So somebody unmuted. Did you have a question? Anybody? Okay. I just want to make sure people don't have questions. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Um, so again, just checking how we're doing on time. I'm not going to do breakouts, but I guess if I think this is a good time to kind of think about um ways in which you could think about having your students co-design part of your course. So, it's a small group. If folks want to unmute and discuss ideas or brainstorm, this is really an opportunity to chat and throw out ideas.
So I would invite those that if you want to turn your camera on and unmute your mic and think about, as Kristen just said, how can we co-design? For me, this would be like such a struggle. Uh, but do people have ideas?
Um,
Robert.
Kristen, it's Rob.
Yes.
Yeah, this is, like Diana just said, it takes some risk, as an instructor to open up this space. And I've had some colleagues, I'm thinking of one colleague, I think she engaged students in redesigning a course and how they could design, I think, more low stakes assignments or um, but yeah, do you have an example of, Kristen, like of doing like say a formative assignment where students can kind of design that, you know, within the course, I guess, before, or are you thinking more like redesigning the course before it runs, or having them as an assignment design a part of the course as they're taking the course, I guess.
I it so for context, I started at Landmark in 2020, and the year I started was also the year that we started offering a bachelor's degree in biology. And so prior to my joining, there was one chemistry instructor that taught only the lower level chemistry classes. So I had to develop 6 classes within 4 years or something. maybe 3 years. So I had to develop classes. And so I was definitely flying building the plane as I was flying it. And so that was sort of the impetus for this, to say, let me be a little bit vulnerable and admit that I can't do everything. And let's see what happens if the students are designing it as they're taking it. And so, again, I know there's a risk involved with that.
So, Kristen, one of the, as you talked and as Rob asked the question, it made me think of one of our colleagues, Ellen, who you did this with high school students. And it was a small group, much like you described your classes. And how she approached it was students, again, read the material, watched the video, whatever the resources were for the particular content that was to be, examined. And students came back and critiqued it. They liked it, they didn't like it. They offered discussion board questions that could be, Rob, help me out. They also thought about some quizzes and assignments, I believe. So they actually,
Yeah.
this was a situation where a course was put on the books to be offered. And in fact, the course hadn't been retooled in years and years. And it was put on the books in error. I'll say it that way. And so the students, so it turned out to be very productive for the high school students, our dual enrolled students, early college dual enrollment. And the students that stayed with it, shall we say, got a lot out of it. A couple students dropped off and didn't participate, but the ones who did got a lot out of it. And it was very productive for the instructor, and it was heavy, heavy workload. But by the end, a course was redesigned in a way that spoke to the particular student body that would be taking the course in the future.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, some, like I said, some of this comes out of necessity for course design. And I think also in my case, it's about making sure that I'm authentic to the student population. There's a common disability quote, nothing for us without us. And so I really live by that. I'm gonna keep us going and talk about my next example, which is talking, as I've mentioned, the counter stereotypical scientist narrative. And so one of the research avenues that I explore is the overlap between the physical disability movement and neurodivergence, and maybe in some cases the lack of overlap, the lack of crosstalk that takes place between physical disabilities and neurodivergence. And so for this piece of curriculum, because I do collaborate with a number of blind scientists, I was thinking about how can I have a student with a physical, or have a scientist with a physical disability talk about their experiences with my students. And so I was lucky enough to interview a woman named Cassandra Quave, who wrote this book, The Plant Hunter. And Cassandra Quave has a physical disability that she was born with, where she essentially has to have a prosthetic leg because one of her legs didn't develop properly in utero. And but she does field work, and she does and she goes all around the world and collects samples. And so hearing from a scientist who has that challenge was really valuable to my students. And I say that based upon the discussions that we had in the classroom, because the students really opened up about their own disabilities and also their own challenges. And hearing and seeing someone who they can relate to is really important. So in this case, I participated in a faculty mentoring network where they had a framework for developing the modules. I did the initial interview and did the recording, and then this was when I switched gears and really focused on having one student intern assisting with the editing and assisting with the framing to get the final product. This was valuable not only because of just bandwidth to actually go through and do some of the tedious editing, but also to make sure that it was authentic to my students. And then once it was deployed in the classroom, the students again were able to give feedback and through an iterative process. And what was interesting was that the students really loved the interview, which was visual. They also received a transcript that was edited via AI and things like that. But they found that they wanted a little bit more visual stimulation during the interview as they were watching it. And it would have been helpful to have maybe some slides occasionally, things like that. So there's definitely that kind of iterative process that went through, which I didn't end up including in the published product. But and that's Gabrielle, that was a student, recent graduate of Landmark, who helped out with this interview. But it was a way to incorporate, at the time I was teaching a drug discovery course, a way to incorporate that authentic voice into the process. I just lost my mouth. There we go. Oh, I think there's a video. And it might not like the video, but I wasn't planning on showing it. And now my PowerPoint is crashing. Give me 1 second. I'll pull that back up. Sorry.
Yeah, stop the screen share for a minute and then let's see if people have questions or comments while you get yourself organized again. So does anybody have thoughts, questions, comments? If you put them in the chat, we'll gladly read them or call them out. We'd love to hear what you're thinking about the work that Kristen has done with her students. So please feel free to share.
I was very inspired by the story of that field researcher who has a disability. Could I have the name like spell out so I can search her up to encourage students?
Yes, I will put that in the chat.
Thank you.
So that's her name, and the book is entitled The Plant Hunter.
Welcome, Anne Marie. You're not late. No reason. Apologies not needed. We're having a tiny bit of technical difficulty right now, and Kristen will reload her slide and open it back up. Go ahead, Rob. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Kristen, I know you're trying to work on that, but did you go through a debriefing with the students? So kind of have them reflect critically on their work and how they've gone through that process of co-designing and kind of using that, kind of cycle of feedback to inform kind of the next iteration or engaging other students, kind of what you learned from that?
Yes. So it's pretty easy for us to have those reflective moments. I actually do it through the filling out of surveys after the fact, but the students, as they're filling out the surveys, they're sharing most of the things with the group. It's a very, laid back process. And I think overall the students, the students really appreciate the kind of the personalization of the curriculum to them, but also, it's really nice to be able to bring in things that are real time. I'm just looking at the so this book was published in 2021.
تعرف میکردی خب نی ساله چجوری اینو گفت
So we have,
It-
have
it-
some
it-
background.
Alright, so- yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're getting some crosstalk here. Go ahead, Kristen.
So this book, The Plant Hunter, was published in 2021. So being able to bring in, things that are, 4 years old, to my classroom and is also really huge. So, the students really appreciated that. This was actually, a figure that, Gabby put together, talking about, the different, aspects of, multimodal learning that I wanted to share, which is currently under review for the Journal of Applied Instructional Design and will be published. It was actually just accepted, so I just have to do the revisions, but it will be published sometime in January. So, the culture that we have at Landmark is reflective. All the students take a perspectives and learning course, and so from day one, they are constantly going through reflecting, and we're modeling that, for our students. So I will just do one more quick last thing, and then I will turn it over for more questions. I'm gonna kind of truncate this. The last thing I wanted to just talk about briefly is the incorporation of cures. Cures are course-based undergraduate research experiences, where you are doing some type of research in the lab. In this case, it was organic synthesis. And so the students were really able to, it was something that was I redesigned the second half of my organic class, where they started off by planning out their synthesis, doing the synthesis, and then presenting on it. But one of the things that I also incorporated was the final exam was personalized to their synthesis project. And so it was really applying what they had learned, modeling what they would see in the real world. So if they were getting a PhD in organic chemistry, asking them questions specifically about their process. And, we're a college that doesn't have a lot of equipment, so they couldn't analyze their products. So I gave them fake data and said, did you get your products? But it was something that they were able to do to kind of narrow it down. Organic chemistry traditionally has a lot of memorization, and I try to de-emphasize that with students and try to help them to focus on the the practical applications of that. So yeah, so I want to kind of be cognizant of time and leave time for questions. You have the PowerPoint slide, so I have recommended resources. What I always like to end my presentations with is a quote that I got from a dean my first semester at Landmark. He said, you don't need to move the entire parking lot or build a new parking lot to make your course to accommodate students. Think about how you can move parking spots to make the course more accessible, which is something that is much more feasible and reasonable for faculty. So I want to leave you with that and think about how you can use that to make your courses more accessible. So I'm just going to scan the chat to see if we have any questions in the chat. But yeah, so that is what I have. You can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I am in the process of wrapping the semester up at Landmark, and I'm doing a career transition. So the best way to connect with me is through LinkedIn. But I'm happy to answer questions now, or if you have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me. And thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so if people have questions, please unmute and go ahead and ask your questions. We're really grateful to have had Kristen with us today. It is the kind of curriculum design that Kristen described is incredibly challenging and rewarding at the same time. And I think you've said it a couple times, Kristen, taking that leap of faith and knowing, what can I do when I'm put in a position where, maybe I need to actually redesign the course versus how can I be authentic and support student development, especially we know in the STEM fields where it's so, so important. Not that it's important in any field, but that's one of the more challenging areas still. So if anybody has a question or a comment, we'd love for you to unmute and go ahead and ask. These recordings are in YouTube. So Kristen, in a week or so, 2 weeks, depending on Ben's schedule, our IT support, we will have it posted, and Rob is going to put that link in the chat. I know he is right now, to the YouTube playlist. And I just posted and will post again. We're looking for proposals for the next session, next series, I should say, season 3. So please, pass that along to your colleagues. We're very interested in continuing the work. It's really important to us at Goodwin as we enter our 10th year of working and trying to understand and implementing universal design for learning in our university. Go ahead. You have your hand raised, Young.
So I do not teach in STEM. I'm an instructional designer. I do work with chemistry teacher, math teacher, and engineering teachers in designing online courses. We've been talking a lot about authentic assessment, engagement, but there's this question kind of in the back of my mind that I wanted to ask, and I feel like I don't know if it's appropriate. Like, how do we demonstrate the value to students that it's still worthwhile that coming to take this course? In ChatGPT or in AI, you can search a topic and it just give you tons of resources. What's the value of student coming to take a course from a teacher?
That's a great question.
Like
It is.
the content, what's the word for that?
So let me,
In the age of AI, what's the value of a STEM teacher or any teacher?
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you want to take it, Kristen?
Sure. So, we it's very interesting. We're having discussions about attendance or lack of attendance for students this semester. And one of the things that we talk about is what is the classroom experience for students and how can you help them to understand what the value out of coming to a class is versus just watching the recording later if you post the recordings. But even if you don't, what's the difference between just going to YouTube and finding someone to describe what have you, or going to AI? And we talk a lot about the collaboration that takes place and the conversations that take place. This is probably more true in the humanities classes, but I think it's also true in my classes. I think that, there are many times when I'll say, you know what, I'm not going to answer your question. How about you work with your partner? And being able to be in the room, seeing other students that are struggling with the same things that you're struggling with and working together to solve those problems, that is the value of it. And from the AI perspective, we still need some people that are able to decipher what AI spits out and whether it is accurate or not. There's always going to be things that most likely are not accurate that AI spits out. And so the expertise is changing, but it doesn't mean that it is not valued and important. And so, I tell my students, I say, you know what, you have a take-home exam. If you use AI, good luck, because I have still found that it doesn't do very good job with chemistry. But I tell them, if you can fix it, then, you know, you've demonstrated your content knowledge. So I think that it's just really important for us to think about what are the soft skills that students are engaging with when they come to class? What are the value of community that they get? And by extension, you know, what are our learning objectives and what are our assessments actually tackling? And what does content knowledge actually mean and how can students demonstrate it?
Yeah, Rob, you have your hand up?
Yeah, that's a great question and a really thoughtful response, Kristen. I was thinking about this too because and Diana knows, you know, some of us teach or have taught in synchronous online environments, and you know, and there's a reason why we don't record those sessions because the collaboration and the community building and the, you know, if I can use the word, the co-constructing of learning comes out of those sessions that you can't really find in a video or in some other content source. It's also so engaging. And what I mean by engaging, it's motivating for students wanting to come into that space and to talk about those topics and how to build in different activities where their participation and their collaborating in those spaces is going to help them on the next assignment, or actually they start working on that assignment in that session if we're talking about synchronous, either on ground or online. And yeah, and I think this applies with STEM and also humanities. And I used to teach education, you know, folks, but people want to come together and kind of talk about these things. You know, it could be in a group chat or it could be discussion board, but sometimes asynchronous gets people really energized. And I think how to make those spaces instrumental for them, especially with the assignments that you've built into that course. And I was also going to add too, Kristen, I've dealt with sometimes helping students to redefine their role as learner, because sometimes they'll say, well, you're the instructor, you tell me what I need to do. Why am I doing this PowerPoint? Why am I, you know, giving input? So then you have to do some of that groundwork, I think, and now we have AI. So now it's, you know, we have many different challenges. But thinking about as learners, we're also teachers, and as teachers, we're learners, and how do we share those roles? But
Yeah, yeah, and Kristen, you made a couple of really good points in your response, and you know, this idea of yes, we can get everything without coming to class. We can pretty much get all the information. And if, as instructors, we choose to lecture during our classes, um, that's not really value added for the student because they can get all of that. And Rob, your point about um, teaching students, I'm going to use the word how to be part, how to engage socially to learn, because we know there's a social component to learning. And Rob, I think that's what you were addressing is, you know, the group itself, what we can get from the group is going to be far more than we can get from any chat box, for example. So really helping students to understand, reconceptualize what it means to be a learner and to be part of a learning community. Does that help to our person that asked the question, which I think I lost her on the screen?
Yes, yes, very much. Thank you for these wonderful answers. Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? We're thrilled that people made it today. I know this is a very busy time of year with Thanksgiving coming up. Some schools are off on break. The Professional Development Network is having their conference. So many of our colleagues are, where are they, Rob? I think you said, are they in San Diego?
I believe so. Yep. The
Yeah.
pod conference. Yep.
Yeah. So, Kristen, we are grateful for you giving us your time. And we wish you all the best as you travel on to new and greater heights. And we'll be looking for wonderful instructional design coming out of the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. So, all right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great holiday for those that celebrate, and stay tuned for our December event. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Kristen.